Hello everyone, I am Janani. I am going to explain about the poem Black Women written by Nancy Morejon. This poem is about a journey of a slave, and that slave is a black woman. She was forcibly taken away from her native place. Still I smell the foam of the sea they forced me to cross. Night, I cannot recall the night, nor could I even recall the ocean itself. But never have I forgotten the seagull I glimpsed, high up, the clouds, like innocent ever-present witnesses. The black woman is saying that still she remembers the smell of the foam in the seashore, and she remembered that night, the ocean they crossed in their way from her native place. She saw a bird called seagull on that night, and she conveys that these are all the witnesses for her migration. Perhaps I have not forgotten my lost coast, nor even my ancestral tongue. They dropped me here, and here I have lived. And because I work like a dog, here is where I was reborn. And I sought to relay on epic story of the Mandinga. After epic story, I rebelled. Though the black woman left her native place, she has not forgotten her ancestral tongue. She brought as a slave and dropped in that place, and she lived there. In that place, she worked very hard like a dog, and she was reborn in that place. She adapted herself to the new place, and she learns the language called Mandinga, which was spoken there, and then she rebelled. She raised her opposition. His Grace purchased me in a public square. I embroidered his Grace clock, and I bore him a son. My son was given no name, and his Grace, he died at the hands of an impeccable English lord. I trudged forward. This is the land where I was lashed and beaten upside down. And now she was purchased by a man in a public square. She became slave for that man. She embroidered his clock, and she bore a son for her master. But her son was not given a name because of his mother's slavery. And then the man who brought her from the public square was killed by an English lord. After that, she stepped forward in her life. There she was beaten violently in an inverted position, and she underwent many struggles. I paddled along its rivers. Under its sun I sieved, harvested, and ate none of the crops. I got a slave barracks for a house. I myself carried the stones to build it. But I sang in the natural beat of the nation's bird. I rose in rebellion. Then she paddled in the river and moved to another place. There she sowed, harvested, but she didn't eat none of the crops. Then she built barracks by her own self. At that time she sang about the nation's beat, and now again she rose in rebellion. In this very land I touched the warm blood and rotten bones of many others like me, brought here, or nor as I was. Then I stopped thinking about the way of Guiana forever, to Guiana or Benin. So now in that land she saw many other slaves like her. After that she stopped thinking about the place like Guiana or Benin. Was I thinking about Madagascar or Cape Verde? I worked even more. Then I laid the foundation for my best millenary chant and my hope. Here I built my world. I went to the mountains. Now she stopped thinking about Madagascar or Cape Verde also. She worked more and more for the lyrics of her 1,000-year-old song, and now she got a hope, and she built her own world, and then she went on to the mountains. My true independence happens at the stockade, and I rode with Masio's cavalry. Only 1 century later, alongside my descendants, from atop Blue Mountain, I came down from Sierra to put an end to capitalists and usurers and generals and petty bourgeois. Then she started to defend against the attacks made to her, and now her true independence happens. She thinks of Maceió's cavalry. Maceo is a Cuban general who is famous for his strength and his courage. After a century later, she moved down from the mountain to Sierra. Then she likes to put an end to capitalists and conservatives. Now, I am the only now do we hold and create. Nothing is beyond our reach, or land, or the sea and sky, ours the magic and the amazing dreams. My equals, here I see you dance around the tree we planted for communism. Its generous wood is clearly resounding. Now she has something in her hands to create a world of her own. At last she conveys that she got a hope to reach her native land with her magic she learnt from her journey and with amazing dreams, and her wish is to see others dance around the trees that they planted for communism and their generous resounding. Thus Nancy Morejon ends the poem. This poem was written in her native language and it was translated into English by William Little. This poem clearly explains about the sufferings of a slave and portrays how a black woman becomes a brave woman.